Hello, how's it going? In today's video, I'll be covering the Broken, the Scouring of Draenor, and the Fall of Skyreach from Chronicle Volume 2. Let's go! So the Draenei were pretty much done at this point. Although Velen and some of his people had survived, their culture was no more. They were refugees again, but this time trapped on a dying world, full of the Burning Legion. Things weren't looking good. Velen ordered some artificers to reinforce Tel'Rador's defences. They constructed a big network of Arcanite crystals that basically hid the temple's presence from the Horde. Over time, Vindicator Marad and other Draenei survivors arrived at Tel'Rador. They'd seen some shit, man, and they didn't want to talk about it. They'd pretty much be scarred forever. Other survivors had more than just mental scars. Akama and Nabundo were among the unfortunate Draenei that were exposed to the Horde's red pox plaguey thing. Their bodies had twisted, becoming smaller and shriveled like a raisin, or someone who's been in the bath for too long. They even found that their connection to the Holy Light had been severed. They were now Kul, which means broken, and the normal Draenei didn't like them, which seems kinda harsh, but from their perspective, they were a little bit worried that the Kul would spread their affliction. Velen and Marad did try to convince everyone to accept the Broken, but they were eventually driven out. The unluckiest of them degraded into creatures called the Lost Ones. They were even more deformed, and also mental. This was the eventual fate that awaited all Broken. All they could do was try to find a cure, or try to slow down their degradation somehow. Other Draenei survivors found enclaves across Draenor. Velen would, over time, travel to these other settlements, mainly to help his people, however he could, but also a little bit to prevent himself from being captured. The Draenei lived in constant fear of tomorrow. They never knew when the Horde might discover them in their little hidey holes. Tel'Rador would remain the largest and most important of the hidey holes. As time passed and fell energy continued to destroy the world, the Zanga Sea around the island dried up and became a swampy mire called Zanga Marsh. Meanwhile, Warchief Blackhand had already moved on to the next enemy. Now that the Draenei were destroyed, he could conquer all the other knobs on the planet. Chieftain Kilrog led the Bleeding Hollow clan on a campaign into Farallon. It was still unsullied by fell magic, but Kilrog and his followers were well adapted to fighting in such terrain. Kilrog and his army slaughtered every Botani and Genesaur they could find as the forests burned. Chieftains Gromash and Cho'Gall led their clans on a siege of Highmaul. They both loved it, but Cho'Gall especially. He'd always wanted vengeance on those who'd exiled him. He sought out the leader, Imperator Margok. Both of them were talented sorcerers, but Cho'Gall had the advantage of fell magic and the void, so he won. He bound Margok to his throne and burned the rival mage alive. Lovely. Blackhand also tasked the Thunderlord, Frostwolf and Whiteclaw clan with wiping out the remaining Gron, Ogron and Magnaron. Also any ogres they came across. Most of the ogres had already joined the Horde, but there were a few holdouts that needed to be taken care of. They'd already had their chance to join, now Blackhand just wanted them dead. The Frostwolves and Whiteclaws saw no honour in this. They held most of their warriors back. However, Chieftain Fenris and his Thunderlords bloody loved it. One of the few Gron to escape the Horde's onslaught was called Gruul. He lorded over a couple of ogres and Gron in Gorgrond. He managed to fend off multiple Thunderlord assaults, to the extent that Fenris eventually just gave up trying. The biggest remaining threat to the Orcs were the High Arakoa in the Spires of Arak. They'd rediscovered their ancient Apexis technology and had a big old cannon atop their capital, Skyreach. Warchief Blackhand called on Kargath Bladefist to deal with them. They stormed the forests but immediately regretted it. They weren't really ready for the Arakoa's advanced weaponry, because the Arakoa basically just ignited their sun cannon and incinerated dozens of them. So Kargath changed his plan. He went to Tarakar Forest and formed an alliance with the outcast Arakoa. The wingless creatures hated Skyreach, but more importantly, they knew their secrets. So a bargain was struck. You infiltrate the city and destroy the High Arakoa's weapons, we'll then join the fight and help you slaughter them all, and then Skyreach is yours. So the outcasts snuck in and waged war. They immediately went to the mechanism atop the city and destroyed the sun cannon. Kargath and his followers then arrived and slaughtered the High Arakoa. They then turned to the outcasts and were like, "Sucks to be you!" and they cut them down as well. They couldn't risk allowing the outcasts to one day wield the same power as the High Arakoa. Plus, he just really enjoyed betraying them. They did take some High Arakoa prisoners. Kargath ordered these captives to be cast into Sethek Hollow's cursed pools. He took great pleasure in watching them as they howled in agony, their bodies twisting and withering as they became outcasts. High Arakoan society was no more, and there weren't an awful lot of outcasts left either. Just a couple of stragglers, and the new ones that Kargath had just made. Some shrouded themselves in shadow and hid in the deepest corners of Tarakar Forest. The newly transformed ones banded together under the leadership of a former Skyreach guard named Grizik. They went to Arkandun. Grizik nursed a bitter hatred of the Horde and awaited the day he could exact vengeance on those that spilled the blood of his people. And we're leaving it there! Still no happy endings in sight. In the next Volume 2 video, we're going to finish Chapter 3 and then immediately start Chapter 4. As always, special thanks to those of you who've become patrons. If anyone wants to support the channel in that way, links in the description. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks. And all that's left to say is, thanks very much for watching, and see ya!